Now that we have the shorts back from the serger team, they have cover stitch, or they have serged the inseam, they've serged the crotch seam, and hopefully they've woven these tails in. And we really do request that you weave these in. We do not prefer that you do the little trick where you can run this underneath your foot. And there's a variety of reasons, and I will cover that in the serger tutorial, why we don't prefer to do that. All right, so let's talk a little bit about the cover stitch feature on your serger or your dedicated cover stitch machine. So I'm going to show you directly behind me, I think. I guess I have to go the other way. All right, so this would be an example of a serger that can be retooled quite quickly and easily to do the cover stitch machine or cover stitch function, and you'll love doing it. It's very quick. Now, when we first started doing these, we struggled. We were zigzagging these on, zigzag them to the shorts, then we turn it and zigzag again, and that works. But we have decided we want to up our game and make the shorts look as close to store-bought as possible, so that they look very professional and like we cared enough to do our best. So I went online looking for someone, anyone that had an idea on how to do it differently. Now, in addition to zigzagging it along the top, we tried basting. We did a long running stitch. We did use white thread so that we could see the thread when the shorts were done and pull it out, because a basting stitch will pop when the user is putting the shorts on or taking them off. And we didn't like that. We thought that might make them a little less confident in the shorts lasting. It doesn't affect the wear at all, but it does affect your confidence. So we've decided we don't really like that method. And it's another step, pulling that basting stitch out. So then we also tried and explored serging it on. Now, serging it on is very tempting, because if you leave your blade engaged and you're super careful not to cut the elastic, you do not want to cut the elastic, because it will change the height of the waistband. So visually, what the user will see is it'll get really narrow and then it'll get wider, and that's not acceptable. So that won't pass quality control. Those shorts will have to be repurposed, and a lot of wasted energy and time has gone into them, so we really don't want to do that. So the other problem with the serger is it lays down an awful lot of thread. Now, let's just say that we have got thread, endless supply. So we're not worrying about the quantity, like the availability of the thread. But when you have got all that serger thread along this edge, and then you add the cover stitch. So the cover stitch, let me show you what it looks like on the inside. This is the outside, which is really, that's what we're all used to seeing, and it looks very nice. On the inside, it adds all this stitching. Okay, so I've got a stray string, don't I? That's what happens in my sewing room. So you've got cover stitch thread on top of serger thread. It starts to look a little messy, bulky, not as good as it could look. It's works, but if we're trying to up our game, I wanted to explore, is there not a better way? And let me add another. If it's been serged on and the shorts get to the quality control team, and thank you for all the people who volunteer on that team. It is a tough team, because you're worried about offending someone who's really put their time in, and they want to do a good job, and you are critiquing or rejecting their work. That's a hard job, so I hope you all love on them when you meet someone who serves on that team. But let's say they've got these shorts back and there is a problem in, and this happens, believe it or not, there might be a section missed right down in here. Well, to get at that and for it to still look nice on the inside, remember we're trying to make our shorts look really nice, and so we have changed our standards a little bit. You literally, the quality control team has to take the waistband off, take this seam apart so that they can get at that seam, redo the whole seam. With a serger, if you've missed someplace right in the middle, it's really not acceptable to serge on and then fix a little spot and serge off, because now you've got a knot here and a knot here, or tails hanging there. Tails are not acceptable. If you've woven the tails in and the rest looks okay, you can probably get by with it. But our method would be to just take this all apart and start over. I just finished doing that on about 10 pairs of shorts. Good TV project if you're watching a good movie, but if you don't have to do it, it's nice. So you can imagine if you're taking apart sergers, first you're taking the cover stitch off, which is actually very easy. Then you're taking the serger stitching off. That is a lot of work. When a serger has gone through elastic, the trick of pulling the two needle threads does not work. It's too thick. And so you are literally picking out all the way along. Then you have to clean the elastic up because all the little pieces of thread are stuck in there. It's really a lot of work. It's very time consuming. And then of course you still have all this picking out to do, or if you're going to start down here. But frequently if you've got a problem here, you're going to discover that there's problems in this area, and you're just going to need to start over on that pair of shorts. So for that reason, we decided, let's find a better way, something different than serger, something different than basting, something different than zigzagging. And as I was doing the cover stitch on some shorts recently, one of my threads broke, the needle thread. And the cover stitch machine kept going. She did the other needle with the lower looper, so basically 2 threads, and she just kept going. And I'm thinking to myself, that's a chain stitch, easy to remove, and doesn't add a lot of bulk. Why can't we do just 1 needle on our cover stitch machine or convertible serger, and then do the cover stitch? So let me just say one thing about why do we even do this? Why do we want to base this on? Why? Well, if you can imagine, I have to have the elastic on the inside here, even with the top edge of the shorts, and I prefer, this pattern does not need modification. So if you're cutting off the top of the shorts, you're modifying the pattern. So you do want your elastic to run along the top edge of those shorts. All right, see, now, you might want, no, I guess it's not even wandering, it just looked that way because it's drooping down. All right, so, you really are going to try hard to get them to be equal. You don't need a blade, you don't need to be cutting anything off. But if I have to hold my elastic here, keep it even with this, fold it over, and then I'm cover stitch is a top stitch. So I'm stitching on this side. I can't see what's happening down here. And I did try, I gave it a really good try to just hold it under there and try to keep my fabric perfect. Well, I was having fabric coming down, fabric going up, all the things. None of those are acceptable. And so I was having to remove a lot. And again, it's easy to remove the cover stitch, but it's a little frustrating if every pair you do does that. And yes, I could just cut off the part that went below, hanging down in here. But what have I done? I've pulled this up, right? So I've changed the comfort of those shorts. And why have a pattern if you're not going to use it? If you're just winging it, there's that argument, right? So in the interest of just doing the best job we possibly can, we need to base that on here so that we don't have to try and fight this battle. Okay, and there's not a jig to my knowledge. I've explored the internet. If you know of a jig, then we could skip the basting step. I did find a very fancy tool that holds it and does all these things, and it's about $290, somewhere around there. I feel like we can just baste it. So I did a little test. This is just the cover stitch. This is what it looks like on the underside of a cover stitch. You see that chain? That chain is identical to the one they use when you buy flour in a sack and they've got that little string across the top, and you're going to figure out which end they started on and pick a couple, and then you can pull and the whole thing just comes off. That's why I love it. So this one, if I decided I hadn't done a good job, all I have to do is find where I ended, and that would be here. And if I were to just pick out a few stitches, and it's actually the bottom one, not the top is where I started. This is where I ended. And you can know that because I had to sew on this side of the shorts, and I lay it in my machine this way, so my only option is to start here, go all the way around, and end there. So again, very easy to take out. And I would ask that the people doing the basting just check your own quality on that step, because if you didn't do a good job, then the person doing cover stitching is going to just have to do the work of taking your work out and doing your job for you. Or in my case, doing my job for myself, because I was doing both steps. But all right, so with that said, I'm going to take you next to the cover stitch machine and show you how I tricked my machine into, it's probably not really tricking it because this is legit. You could have projects where you just want one single row of stitching and you want it to be a chain stitch. Why might you want a single row of stitching as a chain stitch? Well, look how stretchy that is. I can really pull. I can't pull enough to make that break. That's why. So, you know, if you weren't worrying about providing backup, we could do that even for these seams, but we use a 4-thread overlock when we do step 1. And my feeling is these are going to go typically to places where the moms are highly unlikely to have access to a sewing machine, and in many cases the entire village does not have access to something like a cover stitch or a stretchy stitch machine. So why would we go to all this work only to get them over there and have them have a hole the first time the child decides to, you know, be rambunctious, climbing trees or doing what kids do, and then they broke their shorts and the shorts are no good anymore. So we're trying our best to make these very serviceable and sturdy. So let's go over to the cover stitch machine and explore how this is done.